Hello and welcome back, and today I want to talk about some of the new releases from CES 2020. I want to talk about one of the I'm not going to say not innovative products, but I'm definitely going to say it's something that a lot of you users have been asking for a while. I want to talk about the TR-104C and TR-106C. Well, what are they? Put simply, they are Thunderbolt 3 NAS expansions, but really they are so much more than that. For a long time I have said that QNAP are the innovators of the NAS industry. They've, entered into a lot of different kinds of technical hardware that just the other brands have just stopped and gone, whoa, that's possible? And one of the biggest that they ever did was Thunderbolt NAS. I believe it was back in 2015 we saw the very first Thunderbolt NAS. It was a Thunderbolt 2 NAS, and since then we've seen several generations. I think we're on the third or fourth generation of Thunderbolt NAS, and these newer generation of units take advantage of Thunderbolt 3 or USB-C. Now, these series of Thunderbolt NAS devices available in 4, 6 and 8 bay, there's even a big 15 bay rack mount I believe. These big old devices all have something in common. They all eventually run out of capacity. Whether you fill it with 1 or 10 TB drives or as big as you want, eventually you will fill those drives. And then what do? Do you start deleting data? Do you try to introduce new hard drives? Or do you go for one of the most common options, which is an expansion? Well, till now, your options have been oddly limited. Up until last year, the only thing you could go for in terms of Thunderbolt expansion was the TX series. It was a series, it was a 5 and an 8 bay expansion that was a J body. It had no RAID, and then you could expand your storage over the original Thunderbolt NAS and kind of utilize the drives, and the CPU on the original NAS would use the expansion drives and get a bit bigger. Then halfway through last year, the TR series arrived, and the TR series was a hardware RAID enabled 2 and 4 bay device that utilized USB 3.1 Gen 1 and Gen 2 to give you a RAID expansion that you could add to your NAS device, but it also had its own RAID handling. So whether you wanted it as its own separate RAID enabled bundle of storage, or to expand in the traditional way like the old expansion devices, you could do that, and they were connected over USB-C. And the whole time the Thunderbolt users are like, well, that sounds nice, but where's my Thunderbolt expansion? And I'm pleased to say it's here. This 4 and this 6 bay device, once again the TR-104 and 106C, are hardware RAID enabled Thunderbolt NAS expansion devices. They also work as PC and Mac DAS devices. I'll get to that in a bit. But these devices that arrive with support the very latest hard drives and SSDs, so that's hard drives up to about 16 terabytes right now, or SSDs commercially available in SATA around 4 TB right now, but there's bigger enterprise ones. You can populate these devices with a series of hard drives or SSD, get them RAIDed together using the device's own internal RAID system, and then bolt it over Thunderbolt to your NAS device. But it's also so much more than that, notwithstanding that they're daisy chain enabled with 2 ports on the rear. On top of that, these devices can be used in any NAS device, not just QNAP NAS. I am talking any NAS device, although the amount that you can do with it will differ between different NAS brands and different NAS devices. So let's go to the very top end of the scale. If you own a Thunderbolt NAS, such as the TVS 472 XT, this device will allow you to connect via Thunderbolt 3, connect the expansion device to one of the 2 available Thunderbolt ports, and then you can then add those 4 or 6 bays of storage over Thunderbolt connectivity, which has a theoretical maximum of 40 gigabits per second, but you of course will not get that from this Thunderbolt device with the drives inside, even if you use the very latest SATA based hard drives or SSD. What you're going to be getting from this is still greater than the USB 3 that you're currently getting with normal expansions, and with the added bonus that it has its own RAID engine built into it, means the CPU on your NAS will not have to work harder to maintain that RAID level in certain scenarios. But what if you're not using a Thunderbolt NAS? Well, if you've ordered one of the sort of mid to high QNAP NASs throughout 2019, you may have noticed that they've upgraded a number of the USB ports to USB 3.1 Gen 2. You'll know if you have one of these ports because they've made all of those ports on the QNAP NAS series red. So if you've got a red USB port on your newer generation QNAP, you have got USB 3.1 Gen 2, or USB 3.2 as it's more commonly known currently. Bloody USB naming convention. That means that you can connect this device not only with Thunderbolt devices, but you connect it to those USB 3.1 Gen 2 devices and get 10 gigabit connectivity to that external RAID expansion. And again, that is a great speed. But what if you've got the bottom of the tier? What if you've got a low-end QNAP or even a mid-range QNAP that's only got standard USB 3.1 Gen 1 or USB 3.0 or USB 3.1, one of the myriad of names for that kind of USB? Well, this expansion device arrives with that changeover cable, the USB A to C cable, going by the TR series, although maybe check that just before release. That means that you can connect this device to even low-level QNAPs to either expand or use as mirrored storage. This is, and not only QNAP NAS, but if you've got a Synology NAS, an Acer NAS, a TerraMaster NAS, any of those NAS brands, if you've got a USB port, you can connect to this device. It is an expansion device and an external storage device, depending on the brand you go for, that suits everyone. But it is even more than that. Let's go back to something I said earlier about DAS. This can be utilized as a direct attached storage device. Now DAS, a number of you are probably going to switch off, and thank you for watching, but the 8 or 9 of you that stayed, let's talk about this. Thunderbolt DAS devices that have got hardware RAID are not as common as you think. If you look around, and particularly on this channel, you'll know that I've talked about a lot of Thunderbolt NAS Solutions. I've even talked about brands like Akitio and StarTech that produce budget Thunderbolt 3 solutions that do not have RAID included, that rely on your PC or Mac system to handle the RAID and therefore lower resources available to you. Or they're ones that do have a hardware RAID and have to be purchased pre-populated, such as Lacey or GTech. There are exceptions to the rule, such as Eureka, who are a great company, but do have long lead times and do not have the kind of stock power that Lacey and GTech have. And another one is Drobo, and Drobo is a company that has gone very, very quiet lately, and I do find that slightly disconcerting. So the idea of a Thunderbolt 3 DAS solution arriving at an affordable price with its own internal RAID, which you can connect to a PC or Mac, you don't even need a NAS. That is very, very appealing, and the fact that it is unpopulated means you buy the drives that you want. You're not forced to buy the ones the manufacturer wants you to buy, and best of all, it can be utilized as a USB 3.1 Gen 2 RAID box for DAS. If you look right now, and I dare you right now, press pause in the middle, open another tab, maybe don't press pause first or you'll miss this bit, open another tab and try to find a USB 3.1 Gen 2 RAID enabled DAS that's 4, 5, 6 or 8 bays, just big. Do you come back? Nice. Did you notice something? There's nothing. There's like none. If you try to look for a RAID 5 enabled, that's the key word there, RAID 5 enabled hardware RAID enclosure with 4 or above bays over USB 3.1 Gen 2, not Gen 1, you won't find anything because they're almost nowhere. There's a company called Highpoint that has one, and I do think the Eureka boxes have had an update that they can do it too. Some of the newer Pegasus boxes as well, seeing as they've updated the drivers, but all of those boxes I've just mentioned are way, way more expensive. And this device is going to be a lot cheaper. How cheap, we don't know. I still think it's going to sit between $350 and $500 depending on whether you go for the 4 or the 6 bay, but it's a very unique device. But right now, despite the fact that technically it's not a new, sexy, exciting kind of technology, and nowhere near as the innovation as we're used to from QNAP, there's no denying that this is still a unique device that supplies and facilitates a number of users right now in 2020. And of all the things I'm seeing from CES 2020 over there in Vegas, this is one of the ones that really caught my attention and that is going to sell well. We're still waiting to hear on an 8-bay version like that TR-008C that we leaked a little while ago, but we've not heard much on that, and maybe the naming convention will change. But do stay tuned for my further updates on CES 2020 and all the new releases from all the NAS and DAS brands. Do stay tuned, click like if you enjoyed this video, click subscribe if you want to learn more, and I will see you next time.